What's up, Zoners? Welcome to the Start Sit episode for the New Orleans Saints. It is Week 7, Thursday Night Football tonight. The Jacksonville Jaguars are going to the Superdome to take on the New Orleans Saints. So I will be going over all the start sits for each position, including defense and kicker, for the Saints in this episode. If that sounds interesting to you, hold on for 7 seconds. What's up, Zoners? This is Tyler, Big Turd Ward in Banjo, the dog, coming at you live from my living room. And this is the Fantasy Red Zone, today's episode. So like I said in the intro, I'm going to be covering the start sit for the Saints. I have all this written out in my notes. I'll be sharing that with you right now. All right, let's set the scene. The over and under is at a low 40 points. Surprisingly, that is kind of average this week. There are a lot of low over and unders, so this is not too bad for the week. It'd be terrible for any other week, really. Jacksonville favored by 1 point. And like I said, the weather will be good because they're playing in a dome. First up, Derek Carr. I'm pressing play on Derek Carr. He is only quarterback 24 for the season. Jacksonville's giving up the 6th most points to quarterbacks this year at 19.0 fantasy points per game. That is a great matchup. Josh Allen, it's like a defensive end. He is for the Jacksonville Jaguars, leading the league in quarterback pressures at 32. So they do have a good defense as far as quarterback pressures. That does worry me a little bit. Derek Carr sacked 17 times this season, 8th in the league. So we're looking at those quarterback pressures. We're looking that he is in the top third of the league, as in getting sacked. So that is something to watch out for. He threw it 50 times last week for 353 yards and 1 touchdown. He did have 1 interception, but it wasn't too long ago where that fool couldn't break the 100-yard mark with his hurt shoulder. So looking at that last week, that is really good for Derek Carr owners. I'm starting to believe in Derek Carr again. His floor has just went from, 2 points to maybe 12 points. He has 15 plus points in half of the games this year, and then 8 or under points in the other half. So this guy is kind of like, doing okay for you or just fucking sucking. But right now, he is trending up on just doing okay for you. I think that you can play him this week. Quarterback's been kind of terrible this year. There's a big thread on Reddit on it right now. Is this the year that the quarterbacks are finally sucking or whatever shit like that? I do not think that is the case. But again, there are not a lot of highly productive quarterbacks around right now. And if you look at your waiver wire, holy shit, dude, Derek Carr is worth starting. He does have a 66% completion percentage over the last 2 games. That correlates with his arm strength being there for him after that terrible injury that just fucked him up for a couple games. So again, I would start Derek Carr tonight. Next up, Alvin Kamara. I'm pressing play on Alvin Kamara. What else would you do? He is only running back 24 right now, but he missed the first 3 weeks. Jacksonville giving up the 25th most points to running backs at 14.3. They are playing pretty well against running backs. He is averaging 17 carries and over 7 receptions per game since he returned. It's been 3 weeks, but still, dude, that is elite numbers. He's averaging 14.5 fantasy points per game. That is 10th in the league. So we talked about him being, running back 24 on the year, but in reality, he is a top 10 running back in fantasy this season. He has 12 plus points in every game played this year, so his floor is fucking awesome. He had a 78% snap share last week. That is tied for the 4th highest among running backs last week. So he's still getting a ton of carries, dude. Like, this is the thing about him. He's not doing great. We'll talk about that right now. Is negative 0.44 rushing yards over expected per attempt this season. That is, like, there are no elite running backs in that category. It's all like backups and shit. So his he has not been very productive or efficient. That is the word, but it doesn't matter, man. He is getting the ball so much. He's going to kill you through attrition, through usage. And then here we go, dude. Jonathan Taylor, and Zach Moss combined for 40 rushing yards and a touchdown while averaging under 3 yards a carry last week versus Jacksonville. So those two got stifled running the ball, but get this. They combined for 11 receptions for 84 yards, dude. That is Kamara territory. That's Kamara territory. And hey, Willy is still, I'd say he's still on IR, but he actually got activated. He's been limited in practice all week. And the coaches are thinking that it is going to be next week where they actually play him. That's what the insiders and the coaches, that's what I'm hearing. Next up, the promising young rookie, Kendre Miller. I think he was a 3rd-round draft pick. I'm pressing pause on Kendre Miller. Running back 62 right now. The only running back other than Kamara with any carries, dude, over the last 2 games. So yeah, dude. He is on a team that likes to run the ball, but the guy that is in front of him takes all the fucking carries. So Kendre Miller is not going to be used much, probably this week, unless it's a blowout. So he had 16 touches in that blowout versus New England 2 weeks ago. Then Jamal Williams is going to get into the fold next week. I think I do like Kendre Miller over Jamal Williams, but that's kind of like a 50-50 toss-up right now. Last week, dude, 2 rushes, -2 yards, with 1 reception for 13 yards versus Houston. So that fool had negative yards last week. It's not like he has been amazing, but still, I like highly drafted rookies in the second half of the year. Let's see how he is used, but as long as Alvin Kamara is there, Kendre Miller, probably just a handcuff. Again, Jamal Williams, I have wide receiver 77. That's wrong. He's a running back. Limited in practice all week, coming off IR. Week 8 more likely. He's one of my favorite players of all time as far as his personality and all that Pokemon shit he does. I think it's hilarious. But yeah, dude, Jamal Williams, I think if you really need running backs, he is worth a lottery ticket. Maybe they use him in the goal line over Kamara, but still, Jamal Williams, not worth really rostering until next week. All right, here we go. Chris Olave. I'm pressing play on Chris Olave. What else would you do? Wide receiver 24 right now. It has been a disappointment, but he has those 2 games where Derek Carr couldn't throw the fucking ball. Dude, Jacksonville is allowing the 11th most points to wide receivers at 30.8. That is a plus matchup. Michael Pittman, just had 9 receptions for 109 yards on 14 targets last week versus Jacksonville. So the number 1 wide receiver just killed this Jacksonville Jaguars defense, and I can see Chris Olave getting a ton of targets. Like I said, 10-plus targets in 4 of 6 games this year. Same as Michael Pittman Jr., dude. So we're looking at least Olave is going to get probably at least 10 targets this week. So he does have a lingering toe issue. That does suck. But last week he had that same toe issue, and he played a season-high 87% of snaps. So it is not limiting him too much. He had 7 receptions on 10 targets for 96 yards last week versus Houston. I am starting Chris Olave every single week, except the bye week. Next up, dude, the most consistent wide receiver in fantasy, Michael Thomas. I am pressing pause on Michael Thomas. I forgot to put that on there. Wide receiver 46. If this fool only played the slot, I think I would be all about him this week. But when I went back and watched some of his highlights and every single catch and target, whatever, he plays outside quite a bit. So Michael Thomas last week, 5 receptions, 45 yards on 8 targets last week versus Houston. And those 8 targets are important here. 8 targets in 4 of 6 games this year, but he has yet to crack double digits in fantasy, dude. So he's getting the targets. I chase targets all the time. He's just not getting the fantasy points that should be correlated with them. And here we go. A very interesting wide receiver to me, Rashid Shaheed. I am pressing play on Rashid Shaheed this week. He is wide receiver 37 for the year, so it's not like he's killing it or anything. 2 receptions on 6 targets for 85 yards and a touchdown. 2 rushes for 18 yards last week versus Houston. He had a 12% target share. The targets that he gets, though, are super fucking valuable. You know why? Because he's leading the league in average targeted air yards. So 18.0 per attempt pretty much in air yards. That is insane. That is 2 more yards than the second best player in that category. And guess what, dude? This is one reason why I kind of like Derek Carr. Olave is number 6. So he's got the number 1 and number 6, players that are getting targeted deep, which is crazy when you think about Derek Carr's arm being fucking spaghetti, And here we go. I'm comparing him to Alec Pierce, who was the deep threat for the Colts. He did get knocked out with an injury last week, but he had 3 receptions for 25 yards on 6 targets versus Jacksonville. So these deep threats are getting targeted. And also, dude, Rashid Shaheed, he is, that deep threat specialist. He has had his most success versus zone this season. Jacksonville plays the 9th most zone in the league. So this is a very good matchup for Rashid Shaheed. I'm pressing play on him. Next up, a fellow cancer survivor as such myself, Foster Moreau. Tight end 40 on the year, but hey, dude, that guy's coming back from fucking cancer. Give him a break. Pressing pause on Foster Moreau. Juwan Johnson, was my tight end that I loved on this team. This fool got injured 3 weeks ago, and he's with a calf injury. He's still out. He got just ruled out for this game. So Foster Moreau might do something with his life, but we'll talk about that in the next player who is a huge threat to him. Jacksonville giving up the 5th most points to tight ends at 11.7. Dude, if I get double digits from my tight end, that is amazing. And that is what Jacksonville is averaging, given up to tight ends. That is a great matchup. Granson, who is the Colts tight end, had 3 receptions for 67 yards on 4 targets last week versus Jacksonville, dude. 67 yards is great for a tight end this year. Foster had 4 receptions for 33 yards on 4 targets last week versus Houston. And then he caught a touchdown a week before that on his lone target. The problem with him is he has 7 receptions on the season, dude. So he had that really good game last week. He had a touchdown the week before that. But there are so many unknowns. I do not want to fuck with that on a Thursday Night Football that has been disappointing pretty much every single week for offenses. So I am pressing pause on him. And then here we go. The next player is a big reason why I'm pressing pause on Foster. I'm actually going to press play on Taysom Hill, dude. Take some of that. Tied in 30 right now. Dude, he had 7 receptions on 8 targets for 49 yards last week. 8 targets. And all of his 8 targets came out of the slot. Only one of his targets traveled 10 plus yards through the air, dude. So he is a check down machine. Josh Downs, like I said, had 8 targets and a touchdown last week versus Jacksonville. He is playing the slot. So I really like this matchup for Taysom Hill. He only has 1 game with over 1 reception, so that his floor fucking sucks. But he does have 3+ rushes in 5 of his 6 games this year. And as soon as Jamal Williams comes back, which is next week, I guess, I will probably start taking those away from him as well. So Taysom Hill, I think this might be the last week you can start him, or he might be a slot sensation going forward. Who knows? I am gambling with Taysom Hill because tight ends suck this year anyways. Next up, the New Orleans defense. They're actually defense number 4 this year. They've got Marshawn Lattimore. They've got a good pass rush. They have a defensive head coach. I am pressing play on them. Jacksonville's allowing the 13th most points to defenses this season at 7.8. That is an average matchup, and we have a great defense here. And hey, dude, if Trevor Lawrence doesn't play, holy shit, they're going to be like a top 3 play this week. The last person on the list, Balake Grupe. He is kicker 9 on the season, so he's been doing pretty well. At least he's a kicker 1 for the year. I am pressing play on him. Jacksonville's giving up the 9th most points to kickers at 5.7. That is not a good number. I want my kicker to get double digits, but I think there's a high chance. I mean that, dude, if Trevor Lawrence doesn't play, man, I think that this New Orleans Saints are going to go up big, and I think they're just going to start kicking field goals if they have to. So, all right, everybody, that is the show. Thank you so much for watching. If you disagree with any of my start sits, please let me know why in the comments. Maybe change my mind for me. I do not mind changing my mind when I get new information. So there you go. Hopefully I earned a thumbs up. Hopefully I earned a subscription. If you're not already subscribed, please, please, we need it. This is Tyler, Big Turd Ward, and I appreciate you.